Hey folks, how are we all? Kilt-Man here, Kilt-Man with his customary whiskey, customary vest, customary kilt. But this time, you have a little look there. Yeah, what do you think about that then? They are Lakota Sioux Indian hawk feathers with a medicine wheel as well. Now, that is to show, my allegiance is not only to the US cavalry, it's also to the Indians. In fact, it's especially to the Indians, because they're the ones who got bloody wiped out. Now, remember I did a little discussion on the Custer fringe buckskin jacket a couple of videos ago, because I've got that, fantastic. I love the frontier look of that. And I did talk a little bit about the Errol Flynn movie, They Died With Their Boots On, which obviously inspired that jacket being made. And that has a great score by Max Steiner. But another Custer film, which was actually an epic TV miniseries, it was in two parts, an hour and a half a piece, so a big 3-hour, two-parter, called Son of the Morning Star, with Gary Cole playing Custer and Rosanna Arquette playing Libby, his wife. And for a TV movie, it was very strong, it was very violent, and the battle with the Little Bighorn, depicted in the final sort of 20-odd minutes or so of the movie, was incredibly vivid, realistic, and pretty accurate as well to the known facts. Now, it was based on a book by Evan S. Connell called Son of the Morning Star. That is the name some of the Indians gave to yellow hair, or Custer. Don't go thinking that Custer was hated by a lot of the Indians. Custer was admired as much. He admired the Indians and they admired him. He got on well with a lot of Indians. He did take his orders for the extermination of what the military termed as, and the US government termed as, rogue and renegade Indians who were deemed to be going on the warpath, who were not going onto the reservations. And, why the hell should the Indians have gone on reservations? It was their fucking land, So it's understandable why the Indians were going to fight back. But Custer would take this to the nth degree, because if anything, he wanted fame and glory, he wanted victory. He'd never yet beaten the Indians, because he'd never bloody fought them. What happened in a stand-up cavalry fight with Indians is that the cavalry would charge and the Indians would scatter and then take pot shots from the flanks, and they would just disappear into the foothills or into the forests or whatever, across the plains. And it frustrated Victorian campaigners like Custer, because it wasn't the way you fought a battle. So this June 1876, well, it was the summer campaign of 1876, was to drive the Indians onto reservations. And those in the Black Hills and those, around the Little Bighorn were deemed as absolutely hostile. So Custer's orders were eradicate them, basically. Now, on that day, it was a Sunday, and the 25th of June, 1876. On the day before, the Indians who had amassed on the plains, it was the biggest amalgamation of Indians that the plains had ever known. There were so many different tribes there, of the Fighting Sioux and Cheyenne, and there were thousands of Indians, thousands of warriors, and they had anger in their veins, legitimately. So on that day before, they actually defeated General Crook and his column of infantry, routed him, inflicting severe casualties and taking lots of arms and ammunition from his dead and wounded men. Custer and his command did not know this. Custer and his command approached where they knew roughly where the Indian camp was meant to be. His own Indian scouts told him, look, there's more Indians in that village than there are, blades of grass on the plains. This is a battle you're not going to win. He was famously told by one of the scouts, you and I, brother, are going to go home by a path we do not know. In other words, we're going to die today. Custer's most trusted Indian scout was a bull brick shithouse of a guy called Bloody Knife. And he assigned Bloody Knife to Major Reno's column because he split his command. I've discussed this before, and I'm not going to go massively into it here, because the whole point of this was to play some music. He split his command. Reno is to attack. Well, Custer is going to go straight for what he thinks is the end of the camp. He wants Reno to go around the other end of the camp to cut off anyone who tries to escape. and form a skirmish line there and just cut them off. It's got a third column under Captain Benteen. Captain Benteen is ordered to hang back with the pack trains, which they're carrying all the spare ammunition. And if he sees any Indians, he's to pitch into them wherever. But they've sent him off in a different direction, really. Because Custer, there's all politics here, Custer did not get on with either Reno or Benteen. They are well-known, stalwart, anti-Custer, they hated him and his politics and his leadership. But Custer had a strong contingent of cousins and brothers and all sorts, like, in his headquarters staff. So they were all loyal to him, and they stayed with him in his command. So Custer was to attack one end of the village, while Reno was at the other. Reno goes into action first, because when he attacks the end of the village, the Indians, who actually did not know they were there, but responded very, very quickly, and they immediately leapt onto not a defensive, but a counter-attack. And I'm going to start playing this music, because the whole point of this was to play Craig Safan's fantastic score for Son of the Morning Star. It's an epic score, and I'm going to play the 17-minute epic final track, which is just called Little Bighorn, and it details the battle. You get Custer's theme, you get Crazy Horse's theme in there, you get the whole lock, stock, saddle, boots, carbine, Stetson, the whole bloody shebang is in there, and it's fantastic, riveting, exciting, moving. Anyway, I'm going to start playing it now, and military drums. Most military drums will be replaced at some point by Indian percussion and drums and shakers and whistles, and the two are cleverly combined. But Reno sees all these Indians pouring towards him, dismounts his men, forms a skirmish line, but there's more and more Indians than they could ever imagine sweeping towards him. And the men are beginning to realise the Indians are getting around either side of them. Well, if that happens, you're going to be surrounded and cut off. So before even being ordered to, some of the men are drifting back, leading the horses away. Reno finally realises, shit, this is an untenable position here. So retreat, fall back, and they fall back into the timberland. Now, they've come down from the hills and they've crossed the Little Bighorn River, hence the name, that Little Bighorn. And they've crossed so they're on the Indian side. They fall back to these trees, these timberlands, but they get cut off into little pockets of men, isolated. They're all over the show, wounded, terrified, and the Indians are closing in ever-increasing numbers. So these guys are really shitting themselves now. That Indian scout that Custer trusted and loved, Bloody Knife, is with Reno, but a Teton Sioux bullet smacks into Bloody Knife's head and blows his brains out. This is all famously documented, and the brains actually hit Reno in the face. Now that was a horrifying moment, clearly, and it's that moment that totally unhinges Reno. He then begins to lose the plot, panic, he shouts, retreat, then mount, then dismount, then mount, then... Everyone's confused. Oh, what the fuck are we doing? Where are we going? It's a rout. Finally, he says, all those of you who wish to make their escape, follow me. Well, that's hardly mount and retreat, and a fucking bugle call. Only the ones near him heard that, so people are getting cut off, and they're seeing their comrades fleeing across the river and heading into the foothills again. And they're like, what shit? And before they can even follow them, the Indians have cut them off. All the guys hid in the undergrowth, hid in the trees. A lot of them massacred in there. The men have fled across the river and up into the hills. The Indians rode alongside them, clubbing them out of the horses, shooting their horses, putting arrows into them. These men are trying to desperately shoot and fight, and they're getting nowhere. They finally get up the bluffs, the ridges, and they form a defensive perimeter on the top of what's known as Reno Hill. There they will stay for a day and a night. Harassed by the Indians who are still there, they'll make certain forays down into the river to get water for the men who are dying of thirst as well. Loads of wounded. Reno's completely fucked up. Captain Benteen finally arrives at Reno's position, but they can hear the sound of distant gunfire. They reinforce their defences and sit out the night, but they hear gunfire in the distance, and they can see a cloud of smoke. And they think, well, that's Custer. He's clearly given them a hot time, is what the general sort of vernacular was of the period. He's given them a hot time. In other words, he's whipping them. He wasn't whipping them; they were whipping him. So, Reno and Benteen are now entrenched on this hill. So, of course, what befell Custer? Custer strikes what he thinks is the end of the camp, discovers it's not the end of the camp, it's the fucking middle. He gets halted, actually in the water, in the river. The Indians pour out. They've already been fighting Reno, and then they get word there's more soldiers, more bluecoats. So loads of warriors surge down the riverbanks. Listen to this elegiac Custer theme. Strings, searing strings. It's beautiful. I find it very, very moving. But I love this saga. I've educated myself on it all my life, and to see any depiction of it, I just love it. Because I've always tried to imagine what would it be like, facing the end in such horrific circumstances, seeing your comrades butchered, scalped, mutilated in front of you, and then knowing you've got no way out of this. So anyway, Custer's attack is thwarted big time. They do trade shots across the river with the Indians for a good 15-20 minutes or so. Then more and more Indians appear. Plus there's Indians in the gullies and creeks and ravines on his side of the river. He then begins to fight in formation and in unit and troop order up the slopes of these hills. Not just one hill, but several hills. So his troops like F Troop, E Troop, A Troop, they were assigned different coloured horses. So you'd have white horses, grey horses, black horses, brown horses, and that's how they were identified. They're all beginning to come under heavy pressure, start falling back up the hills, skirmish lines. They're trading fire, but they begin to realise the fucking Indians aren't just in front. They're there, and they're there as well. We've got guys on that slope there who are cut off from us. We can't join them. They can't help us. Shit, we're on our own. But they can see their mates getting done in, moving further back up the hills. Medicine Tail Coulee, there's hundreds and hundreds of Indians in there who've swept up unseen because they can't see down into the gully. There's deep coulee as well. These are great big gullies in the ground, but they sweep up the hills and are sheltering hundreds of Indians. And these guys surge out. You've got the Suicide Boys. The Suicide Boys are a squadron of Sioux Indians who are known for their bravery. They charge straight into the enemy, draw their fire, and they've already given their lives. They've already given them in the ceremonies. So the Suicide Boys ride straight into the air. The cavalry. 68 out of 80 of them were killed. That wasn't confirmed for a long, long time. When it was popular to demystify, the Custer battle and say that Custer's men were useless, they shot themselves, they were all killed, shot in the back, they died on their knees crying. Bullshit, they fought exceptionally well. The Indian witness accounts absolutely corroborate that. The battlefield history, I told you about that fire in the other video that swept across the battlefield, unearthing bullets, cartridges, so they could trace the individual weapons across the battlefield. So they knew where individual soldiers were, and maybe when they were killed and a weapon was taken by an Indian. This is the book you need if you ever want to know about it. It's from the Morning Star, written by Evan S. Connell. It's a great, great book. It's very factually based. It's a huge, vast tome, but it's based on older information, and it gets a few things wrong. This book, which is called The Fights on the Little Horn, I actually forgot it was called that. Meaning there wasn't just one battle, there was many individual battles on those hills. And it's written by Gordon Harper, but it's based on another guy's 50-year research. He lived on the Little Bighorn. He interviewed the surviving Indians and the descendants of those Indians. And he dug up that battlefield day in, day out. His information is unparalleled. Unparalleled. Sadly, he's dead now. But anyway, that's the book. So, I get carried away with this, don't I? Custer's men surrounded here. Crazy Horse has swept over the top. This bit here. Custer's men, he's shouting, dig in, dig in. They've shot the horses for breastworks. They're scattered all over the place. Custer's headquarters unit, with a cousin, friends, a brother, are huddled together around the flag. They're desperately hoping there's going to be some kind of salvation. Benteen or Reno are going to get to them in time. At some point, they'd have to realise that's never going to happen. And they are fighting, literally, to the last man. And they're going to die on that hill. They never make the crest of the hill, where it's always thought you can form a defensive perimeter. Because Crazy Horse, there was actually 2 Crazy Horses fighting that day. One was Crazy Horse's dad, called Crazy Horse Senior, and Crazy Horse, the one that we always think of, the legendary Crazy Horse. Him and his Sioux warriors stream across the top of the hill and smash into the remnants of Custer's 7th Cavalry, decimating them. The final moments are hand to hand and savage. Skulls are getting cracked open with tomahawks and hatchets. Men are getting knifed to bits. Their guts are being pulled out. They're being scalped. Eyes are gouged out. You know, it wasn't pleasant. It wasn't just a delicate bullet which would take you down, or an arrow. You'd be butchered. As you can hear, Craig Safan's music isn't the traditional battle music. Solo trumpet, always a very forlorn, dignified, militaristic anthem. This is the end, you know. All of Custer's men have been separated, different ranks. Occasionally one rank would gather together and charge into the Indians and drive them back, but then they'd be overwhelmed again. Stragglers, people badly wounded, managed to make it up to Custer's little huddle of people, so their ranks are actually increased, but it means nothing. They're also out of ammunition. I get so moved by this. The TV show also ends with Crazy Horse being captured and taken to a reservation where he knew he would die in that reservation. He'd never have the open plains again, and he refused. He tries to make a getaway, and he's actually bayoneted in the back by soldiers. That's what happened. That's the truth. Just tragic. The Indians' phenomenal victory over Custer also led to genocide. They could have been under no illusion that that was their only moment of victory, of, you know, fighting back against the unstoppable white onslaught, the white takeover of their lands, the Iron Horse creeping across their nations. You know, the whole thing's so horribly tragic. As I say, I always think about extricate myself from the terrible politics behind all this and think of the individuals on each side fighting for their lives. The Indians fighting out of pride and rage and hatred for what's been done to them. The cavalry fighting out of fucking desperation, you know, seeing their friends butchered in front of them, fighting to the last man. Custer had a bullet in his side, a bullet in his temple. A fingertip was taken and his ears were punctured by sewing awls by the squaws. That was to help him hear better in the happy hunting grounds, because they'd said to him, Custer, if you yellow hair, if you invade our people, we will kill you. And don't forget, as I said before, there was a lot of mutual respect. This goes unheard of now. It flies in the face of what popular public opinion tends to be regarding the Custer debacle. It's easy to victimise him and make him like a scapegoat of it. And he did make a lot of mistakes. And he was a vainglorious fool. But that takes nothing away from the men that rode with him to their deaths on that day and faced such appalling odds and fought on to the last, gathered around the flag, all wounded. The war cries of the Indians taunting them. Gary Cole gives a strange and slightly aloof and a bit enigmatic performance as Custer. It's not a brilliant performance. Rosanna Arquette is superb as Libby, who would go on into her 90s, forever defending her husband through all the court inquiries. Major Reno, Captain Benteen were forever bastardised and made the scapegoats for the disaster, blamed for not going to Custer's aid. Corporal Weir, who was part of the Reno battalion, I think Benteen's battalion actually, when they arrived to reinforce Reno on top of Reno, what's now known as Reno Hill, they saw and heard, they heard the gunfire and saw the dust. Captain Weir demanded to go to the sound of the guns, to go and help Custer. He was a staunch Custer fan, and he was refused permission. But because they said, if you ride out there, you're just going to get cut off and you're going to be killed as well. There's hundreds of Indians between us and them who are surrounded, you know, bottom of the hills. That's why we're trapped up here. But he went anyway, and he got to what's called Weir Point, and he literally saw, you know, this dust cloud, hundreds of Indians pouring around, you know, this site. Knew there's nothing we can do. But before they could even like start firing shots into it, Indians surged up the ridge to attacking him. He managed to fall back to Reno Hill. But it's well documented that he made the only effort to go to Custer's aid that day. Although, you know, it was a foregone conclusion. I hope you heard some of this music. I thought it would be fitting to describe the events while the music played. Isn't that elegiac theme so haunting, harrowing? Absolutely adore it. Brad Pitt for a long time tried to get a Custer movie made, a big epic in this style, the realistic style of the likes of Gladiator and Troy. So really big, large scale, with very intense, realistic warfare battle sequences. And it was going to be called, rather bizarrely, Custer Marching to Valhalla, implying Custer was some kind of Viking. And Brad Pitt was going to play Custer as well. Even Brad Pitt's too old for that role now. Custer was only young when he died, only early 30s. The Boy General, it was called. Isn't it magnificent? Craig Safan. He did The Last Starfighter. He did Remo, Unarmed and Dangerous. He did one of my favourite horror films is Wolfen. In a video I've played music from Wolfen. But his score, Craig Safan's score for Wolfen, was actually rejected because he scored a longer version of the film. So a lot of the scenes which he scored were removed. So his score did not fit the movie. And James Horner, the great James Horner, was brought in. Both scores are available. I've got them both and they're both magnificent. But James Horner's is the better of the scores. This is another track. This is Elegy. Basically all you've heard there was one track. This is that main Custer theme again. It's somber, it's fatalistic, it's doom laden, but it's earnest. It's staring, but it's heartbreaking at the same time. I hope you're getting this. Looking into death, standing there. Custer had 2 pale-handled bulldog revolvers and stood there by their guide and their staff flag. Some say that bullet hole in the temple was put there by himself. Some Indians say they saw him shoot himself. Lots say they don't. Lots claim to have gone in for the kill. But to be perfectly honest, a lot of Indian accounts also say that because he was the last one to die, he was seen with blood gushing from his mouth, crawling around on all fours, and the Indians were too afraid to go near him because they thought he's come back from the dead. He has, because they're very spiritual. Don't mock that. They genuinely believed he's come back from the dead. So they were too afraid to go near. But then it's oft told that one warrior surged in there, and it's told in various versions that Custer had a gun to his head and he wrestled the gun out of his hand and clubbed him, or took the gun from him and shot him himself. Either way, bullet hole there, and fingertip gone, and stabbed in both ears, so he'd hear better, in the hereafter. So, folks, that was a huge, big, rendition of Custer's last stand. People always say, how could it be a last stand? You only ever had one, because that was it, the last stand. But in actual fact, they fought various stands going up the hill, so that he did have a last stand at the top of the hill. That's a big monument is erected there now with all the names of the men. But a lot of the names aren't there because they weren't known. I've got a roll call of all the men who were known in that book there, who were known to have been there. And the bodies are buried where they were found, in other words, where they were lying. Every single body was stripped naked and mutilated, except for Custer's. Stripped, but not mutilated. And but they were hideously mangled. Custer's brother Tom Custer, who is depicted in this film as having a Winchester rifle, that actually wasn't true. But and you see him, and it looks great, but he didn't have one. They really went to town on his body because they hated him. Did the 7th Cavalry have sirens? They're coming to my rescue? Well, they're never going to get it in time, are they? But they really butchered him good style. And it was only his tattoo that they could identify him with. So it's fearful circumstances, of this sort of battle. Anyway, folks, that was a bit of indulgence on my part. Don't worry, I will get back on track with some film reviews and some more good stuff, But after putting that jacket on the other day and discussing it, I kind of got all fired up, and this whole thing has been bubbling around in the back of my head, And I just thought, no, I'm gonna have to do something with this. So, as any self-respecting Kilt-Man would do, he puts a Buddhist wheel of life around his neck, and he put some Sioux Indian feathers in his hair. But I didn't put the cavalry uniform on like I was going to do. Maybe next time. But yeah, I think another film of this will come out, and it'll be done in this really vivid, realistic, possibly hard R-rated version, which I think we need to see. And it'll be dramatically exciting, and the music will be awesome. Oh God, I can't wait. Please get it made. So I don't know what happened to the Brad Pitt version, but it just never materialised. And that soft sod's trying to do a sequel to World War Z. Oh, fuck, World War Z. They're not even zombies in it, are they? It's just anyway. So, I've let this play on, haven't I? And you're still here. But I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to play the elegy one last time. In the final battle, when this bit comes on, the men are just, it's cut away to the other survivors on top of the hill, but then it cuts back to the last stand and people are wandering around wounded. This is where the film doesn't have enough extras. There's not enough Indians. It looks very sort of little pockets of Indians there, and you kind of wonder, how the hell were you actually surrounded by them? Because there's not that many of them. In reality, of course, there's over 4,000 Indians there. Custer had at or around 215 men in his column. You do the maths. It's not going to work, that is it? Custer's been wounded. He stands up by the flag in this Gary Cole and begins to ping off rounds in slow motion. Around him we see men pulled off the horses, clubbed. We see two friends, one's badly wounded. He begs his friend to kill him before the Indians close in, so he shoots his friend, and then as the Indians descend, he manages to shoot himself, and the Indians in disdain hack them up. It's an incredible battle sequence for a TV show. Now you imagine you could even do a TV show, and HBO could do this with their Game of Thrones style, budget, and it would be just incredible. But I'm pinning my hopes on a big movie being made of it as well. Anyway, folks, I'm going to leave it there. 7th Cavalry, over and indeed out. This is Kilt-Man signing off, but I'm going to see you again very soon. So, in the meantime, I'll see you all later. Save the last bullet for yourself.